Fairies are very prevalent in Welsh mythology and folklore. From stories of creatures who live in mines and caves, all the way to the beautiful water maidens of the other world, there is no shortage of documentation surrounding these beings. In Wales, fairies are called the Tylwyth Teg, which translates to fair family or fair folk. These beings come in many variations, sizes and shapes, and we're going to talk about them today. Unlike the way that fairies are described in pop culture and modern fiction, the Tylwyth Teg are not all beautiful, and they very rarely look like Tinkerbell. Lots of the fair folk have a goblin or hag-like appearance, and it is important to have a basic understanding of the main categories before you start researching them further. So join me on a crash course about the 5 main types of Tylwyth Teg. The most common and main kinds of Welsh fairies that you will hear about are as follows. The Cobliniau. Mining fairies. They're similar to goblins and knockers or Tommyknockers if you're from the US. Annwfn. Water fairies. Beautiful maidens that are similar to sirens in a lot of ways, and they are from the Welsh otherworld Annwfn. Bwbachod, aka house fairies. They will tend to or terrorize your home. Gwyllion. Mountain fairies with a hag-like appearance. They are said to haunt the Welsh mountains. And finally, the AlexiAction. They are the Welsh version of elves. Now let's dive into each Tylwyth Teg in a little bit more detail. These are one of my absolutely favourite kinds of Welsh fairies. They live deep underground, scattered in the mines and caves you can find throughout Wales. Mining was once a very prevalent part of Welsh culture, so there are quite literally hundreds and hundreds of mines and caves and tunnels scattered throughout the country. It is said that when that mining was still very prevalent, the Cobliniau would help the miners find precious metals. They would do this by going deeper into the mines and knocking when they found the metals. Cobliniau is the plural word for coblin, which you might have guessed sounds a little bit like goblin. And of course, going further into this, they have a goblin or gnome-like appearance. They are quite similar to the Cornish knockers or the Tommyknockers of the US. The Cobliniau are actually one of the more friendlier types of Tylwyth Teg, so don't let their ghoulish appearance fool you. The Annwfn are a type of water fairy. These water maidens come from Annwn or Annwfn, aka the Welsh otherworld. They are protectors of the bodies of water found throughout Wales. These water maidens are said to be incredibly beautiful, extremely otherworldly, and they would often lure men into Annwfn to marry them. They are quite similar to sirens in European folklore, but they're not as malicious about it. Sometimes. They are known for their dominion over water, and they are extremely proficient in water and glamour magic. And they can be found in all sorts of bodies of water, especially those that are high up in the mountains. This is a literal type of house fairy that is found in Wales. They actually live in your homes. They are quite similar to brownies and hobgoblins. The Bwbachod are a weird one because they can be friendly, but they can also be quite malevolent and mischievous. It really depends on how you treat them and what they think of you. If you leave them offerings, for example, they will aid you around the home. They will help you keep it in order and help keep it clean and protect it. But if you end up offending them in any way, they will literally cause chaos. They have a very particular fondness for humans who enjoy drinking, especially ale. So if you're like me and you don't like to drink, you're gonna have to find other ways to appease them. The best sort of offerings you can leave them are things like ale, homemade goods, or a cup of cream. And it's also best to leave these offerings on or near the hearth. If you do decide to start leaving these offerings, please make sure to leave them regularly and clean the offering space as much as possible. The Bwbachod very much operates on their own terms, and it is really easy to offend them, so just be mindful of that. Like the Annwfn, the Gwyllion are also usually female in appearance, but they are drastically different to the water maidens. They are mountain fairies with a hag-like appearance, and they haunt the hills and mountain roads of Wales. Most people who stumble on the Gwyllion never actually see their face because they will stand with their back turned to you. In lots of stories, the Gwyllion will lead hikers and travellers astray, and those hikers and travellers are usually never seen again. More often than not, the Gwyllion are not a friendly type of Tylwyth Teg. It's honestly best to keep your distance should you ever cross paths with one. They are solitary beings and they prefer to be left alone. but they will mess with you if you get close enough, so it is best to just stay clear. Typical signs that they are near include the sound of loose rock falling, a sharp cry in the distance, and they can even be heard laughing loudly by some. These creatures are basically the Welsh equivalent of elves. Typically, they reside in groves, forests, and valleys, and if you know anything about Wales, you know that the landscape is littered in these types of environments. They are also said to be much smaller than most of the other Tylwyth Teg. They have a deep, deep fondness for mushrooms, especially fungi that is considered to be very poisonous to humans. So if you find yourself in a grove with lots of mushrooms that shouldn't be consumed, you can expect the AlexiAction to be nearby. Just a side note on this, the AlexiAction's favourite kind of mushroom is referred to as fairy butter, which looks like this. It can usually be found growing on the rotten roots of trees and in areas that are abundant in limestone. The AlexiAction are not as malevolent as the Gwyllion, but they can be quite fatal to humans depending on what sort of pranks they're playing. Remember, the fairies are not confined to morality and the human construct of just being mortal. They exist in a realm and a plane where they can get away with doing dangerous stuff and surviving. They will often play pranks and tricks and try and help us, but it's actually pretty fatal. So even if they're not meaning to harm us, sometimes that just happens. They're just not bound by the same laws as humans. The Tylwyth Teg are very prevalent in Welsh mythology and folklore. You will find them in all sorts of local stories and more widespread stories around the country. If you're looking into the Tylwyth Teg or the Fair Folk of Wales, it is important to have even just a basic understanding of these 5 main types, so then when you come across their names in stories, it just makes it a little bit easier to know what's going on. We will be talking about Welsh fairies in another video soon, but I hope that you enjoyed this and it gave you a little introduction into the Tylwyth Teg, aka the Fairies of Wales. As always guys, big blessings to you, and I will see you in the next video.